I'm down here at immense personal expense today. I am raised from what is practically my deathbed, and like this is not just man flu, this is like man Ebola. So the reason I'm down here is because it's obvious what's happening here. I think that the words that Norm was too polite to voice were class cleansing. Yeah? Now this has been going on, to my knowledge, I mean I wasn't around then, but to my knowledge, this has been going on since about 1918. At the end of the First World War, they started pulling this place down. And when I say this place, what I mean is the entire of Northampton. This was the whole of the town. When Alfred the Great, and he wasn't called Great for nothing, or because he'd got a lot of Twitter followers, he was called Alfred the Great because he was great. He said this was foremost amongst the shires. He said that Northampton, by which I mean the boroughs, was the capital of England. Now, look at us. Since the end of the First World War, they've been pulling this place down. I wonder why that was. I've been looking at some research onto that period recently, and I've noticed that something happened, didn't it, in 1917 in Russia. They had a bit of a revolution, and so when the troops came home in 1918, I think all across the Western world, governments were quite frightened at the idea of having a lot of disgruntled, disaffected, angry, working class people in big areas crammed in together. So they started breaking us up. Now this place where we're standing here, I remember this, when I was a kid, this was a nice little row of streets. There was, what, Bath Street and Moat Street and Fort Street, Moat Street and Fort Street, which is what came before Moat Place and Fort Place. Before that there were moats and forts. My great-granddad used to live round in Fort Street. He lived there with me nan and her firstborn, little baby, apparently very beautiful, called Minnie. She lived to 18 months, and then the fever cart that they used to keep in Spring Lane, that came trundling along and into Fort Street to pick her up because she'd got diphtheria. We only had fever carts in the boroughs because, well, surprisingly, this was the only place we needed them. This was the only place where loads and loads of the kids were getting diphtheria. This place has been abused and neglected for 100 years, and long before. And this is disgusting. I think that the people here, I can only reiterate something that I said in the paper in my rant column a few weeks ago, when I said, isn't it about time that the people who govern us had to submit to competence and proficiency tests? Now, there is absolutely no reason why they shouldn't. We all do. And if we do our jobs badly, we don't take an entire community down the toilet, do we?
We'd get the sack.
We'd get the sack. We wouldn't get the jobs in the first place. But I had a message from Brazil the other day. I had to fill in a questionnaire. And they were saying, dear Mr. Moore, how are you getting on with your request for competence and proficiency tests for the government? So this stuff goes a long way. And I had to tell them, well, I've got on about as well as you'd expect, because I've got absolutely no response to it, because I didn't expect one. There is no conceivable test that any of these useless condom failures could ever pass. And I don't even expect them to explain why they shouldn't take this test, although that would be funny. I just want to keep asking the question, because if they even admit that they have heard the question, they are doomed. So, I think we should all keep asking the question, because just like Michael Howard with Jeremy Paxman on Newsnight, the question gets funnier and funnier the more that you keep asking it. So, in the short term, anything that Norman Adams says is the best thing to do for this area, support him. And I will be at your back, assuming that I get over this life-threatening illness, and you're all keeping a very sensible distance from me, and I appreciate that. Well, and over to you, Tony.